in a bedroom in Brooklyn. That's kind of where my shock is at.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's not a bedroom, but it is the bedroom sized.
Right. Sorry. Yeah.
No worries.
As long as there's no bed in there, it's not a bedroom. Okay?
Exactly. There's no bed in here, but yeah, it's exactly the size of the bedroom.
Well, how do you mic the kit?
It depends. Usually, I'm pretty minimal. I'll do. I mean, sometimes I get up to like 10 mics, but that's a lot for me. I usually
that's minimal.
Yeah.
For 2021, I think.
Right. Yeah. I guess I understand covering your bases and over miking. If I had the room and the mics, I would maybe do more of that, but I don't. So I keep it pretty minimal. A dynamic mic on the kick, like a 57 on the snare. I have some KM84s that sound really good as overheads. I trash stuff out. I like distortion, and I like, I'll put a mic in a weird spot and run it through a guitar pedal, and sometimes that's the drum sound. But I usually record that way. And yeah, it's for me, I guess with the drums, it's more about the tuning and the dampening and the way that you hit the drums, like literally just the performance and the style in which you play. And for me, it's usually big, dead, punchy.
So I'm assuming you're hitting the drums pretty soft, right?
Yeah.
That kind of bigger transient.
If you hit them softer, then you can compress more and you can distort more. And it only gets fatter and bigger rather than if you're...
That's like the secret is,
it is
for fatter sounds, don't dig in as much. Also on the bass or the guitar, softer attacks.
Yeah, I think like the song that we're going to play later that I sent you, I'm hitting the drums like super quiet, very quiet. I'm just tapping them. But I was able to get like a real cool vibey sound out of that because, we've got all these toys in the computer now. So, but that's my stuff.
I'm forgetting the name of the producer who did. He's like very famous music producer who he did this whole tirade against Facebook, and like that video got taken down from the internet.
I don't remember.
Oh man, this was a couple years ago, and he just goes off about like we've given up our privacy, blah 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 blah, and at the very end of the speech, he's like, "Oh yeah, so what's hip with music now is hitting the drums very soft." It's like after this whole like tirade about Facebook,
oh, no.
I was like, "This is so classic."
Wow.
And I'll remember it and I'll tell you later.
Yeah,
it's a very famous producer, and that was a hilarious moment for me just by myself watching that. Wait. So maybe you could talk a little bit. Maybe we'll talk more about drums after the sauce segment.
Sure.
But do you have any other any other tried and true techniques that you're using on a daily basis with the productions that you're working on?
Tried and true
that you think are maybe unique to you, or unique-ish to you? Because there's nothing fully unique anymore.
No. I guess for me, so a bit about my production style. Trying to be self-aware right now. I have a real fascination with super lo-fi combined with super hi-fi. And I love the concept of contrast in audio where, for instance, you've got this like, I don't know, do you like Fleetwood Mac?
I love Fleetwood Mac. Sure.
Do you like Tusk?
Sure.
Okay. Well, Tusk is one of my favorite albums. And it's interesting to me that they're like, at the time, like the biggest band in the world, biggest budget of all time for any record or something crazy. And
more than Rumors.
I think so. And you've got these really shiny radio Rumors like tracks up against these homemade, crunchy, bizarre songs that Lindsey Buckingham was cooking up in his home studio. And I'm just obsessed with that album, and it was a huge thing for me, and I think that I carry that into my work is just like really the juxtaposition between something that's really pristine and something that's just like kind of weirdly wrong or crunchy, distorted, or just doesn't sound great. The other thing that I do,
I would say the White Album is kind of like that also.
Oh my God, the White Album is totally that. Again, like a band like of that stature, just like putting out something so experimental. I think that's really cool. Another one for me is like, I have never been great at producing a song fully in the box with samples or sample packs. And I clearly use samples, and I use VSTs and, native instruments and some of those things from time to time. But I've never been very good at inspiring myself starting from there. So what I really try to do is record things in the real world, whether it's in my studio or just any like real sound that I'm making as a musician, creating my own samples and then reusing them. And then once it's in the box, you can do whatever you want. You can
that's when the mangling happens.
Yeah, you can mangle any sound until it fits in the production. But I find I get more excited and more inspired when those are human performances, even if it's a drum hit or, I know samples, a lot of them were created by humans in studios, but do you know what I'm getting at? Like if I'm...
Yeah, it's still exciting for you to pick up a mic and mic something. And make something happen.
Yeah.
Versus just like, oh, this exists on my hard drive, let me pull this in.
It's not fun for me to produce that way. I just love recording, and I love making new recordings and new sounds. It always feels more exciting to me in the finished product when I didn't...
It's novel.
Yeah, exactly. That's all. So I think those two concepts are they loom large in my thinking and in my studio work.
Wow, I love it, man. Yeah. It's funny. I was just talking with another person the other day on the podcast about, I still haven't gotten Splice, and I know everyone's using Splice,
right?
And I feel like I'm the odd man out. And I probably will try it because I think it's about time.
I think it's incredible. That's all that to say, like, everyone has their process, and I've heard. I love modern pop music, and I listen to it, and I'm like, wow, this is so computer like heavy. It just sounds like computer music, and it's incredible, and it's sonically like just awesome. Like I do hear music like that. So I'm not you're not a purist. I'm not a purist, and I'm not looking down on anybody else's process if they're using Splice or sample packs. That's awesome. Like, do you? But for me to get excited when I'm building a track, it's more fun for me to be recording the sounds, even if they sound like samples later.
Yeah. No, I love the excitement of just being the person that does it and making it yourself.
Yeah.
I know you're a multi-instrumentalist and you're doing a lot of sounds by yourself. Do you ever seek outside help, like go to session musicians?
I do.
Anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. I know some great drummers, and if the song is like a certain vibe, like I said, I'm not a pro and I'm not suited for everything. I can kind of pull off a Ringo thing, and that's about it. Which is fun.
The best.
It's my favorite thing, but whatever. Sometimes the track calls for someone else, and I do have people that I love, and I guess that's the same for every instrument for me. Guitar is my main instrument, but I'm not shredding. I'm not like playing circles around people. I'm more of a feel person, and I try to do more with less, and like I'll play 3 notes and I'll make sure those 3 notes sound really soulful and with great feel. But if the track calls for something other than that, like I work with this band Moon City Masters, they are incredible musicians and they are full rock and roll. And I occasionally play on their records, but like if you ever hear the songs and there's like a guitar solo, that is not me. That is Taylor Steinberg. Like, I do work with other musicians that have way different feels, and it's amazing to hear what they do and see what they do and record them. I really love recording other players.
Yeah, totally. It's so fun to be just like tracking sometimes, and not like for me. I'm assuming it's pretty similar to you. It's just when I'm producing a song, I'm playing instruments, or the artist is playing the instruments, and we're in the room and we're just kind of like switching off or whatever it is. And sometimes it's nice to just be like, okay, I'm just recording this.
Yeah.
And like, let's let the magic happen. I just put up the mic.
Are you bass and guitar? Is that? Those are your instruments?
So bass is my main instrument, but I do play guitar and piano at reasonable enough levels that I can do them on recordings depending on the level of difficulty.
Right.
So I tell people I could kind of do the John Mayer thing, but very, very slowly. Like I can't do any of his fast riffs, but I play guitar like a bass player, so I could get about as fast as a bass player gets.
Nice. But then
piano, I got the chords and versions, no problem.
Yeah. Cool.
For the most part.
I bet that brings an interesting feel to your guitar playing then, coming at it from a bass player's brain. It's like, that's the stuff I love too about musicians and different people have, like, I constantly have to keep reminding myself, because I'll hear someone and I'm like, man, that's incredible. I can't do that. And then for a second you're like, maybe I should quit guitar or whatever. But you have to remember, like, they do that, you do something else. And I think that's really like an important reminder to, like, I don't know. I love that stuff. I love thinking about that stuff and just how, and I guess that's the human element that's really important in recordings to me. Whether it be I'm just sitting here plinking out a bass line and it feels pretty cool, or if it's like I'm recording a piano player that's just like blowing my mind and it's something I could never do. I love that experience as well.
Yeah, I feel like every musician has to double down on what they do, and I've said this also before on the podcast. Is like, I think musicians sometimes even get bored of themselves because we know, like I know what I'm gonna do on the bass. Like I have these patterns that I think of, like, oh, that's so me. But for other people, that's not boring necessarily, because it's like they're not in our brain. They're just they're enjoying the music, and so. I feel like our patterns that are sometimes like, it's like, okay, this is just what I do, whatever.
Right.
Are actually really interesting to other people.
Yeah. I did have that experience through lockdown, because I was in this room like every day, all day.
Yeah.
In my own head, like laying down tracks remotely for people or producing songs remotely for people, not getting that real-time feedback. I'm not really going to be like on a Zoom call while I'm working, usually. I mean, I did a few, but usually it's just me. And like in the pandemic, when you're not allowed to be in the room with someone else, I was like super tired of my own ideas. And I really was craving that collaborative experience, because when you're in the room with someone else, they're going to surprise you, or the song's going to take a direction that you probably wouldn't have taken it exactly. And those surprises to me are so valuable, because then it opens up the universe. When you get surprised, you react to that thing. And then you're going down this parallel universe of where you probably would have gone if you was by yourself. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. It's the butterfly effect, right? It's like,
exactly.
Well, yeah. I love that also in music. And like, even when you're playing an instrument, you react to the tone, and that inspires how you play the instrument.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. Which is why actually buying a new instrument is not always a bad idea for inspiration.
Yeah.
Although maybe financially it's a bad idea, but that's a different question.
I'm definitely in agreement with that. I don't have a lot of gear. I have a lot of instruments in here, and I that's kind of I like gear as much as it's the next person, but I try to focus on tactile things that inspire me. Like even like a real synthesizer to me is a completely different instrument than a VST synthesizer. And I can so much more quickly get something cool and something that's inspiring, because it's an instrument that I'm touching, you know?
It's a tactile experience.
Yeah, exactly. I think those are I think I just went through like 4 different ideas, and I was trying to just say that I like instruments, and my studio is pretty gear light, to be honest. I have some mics that are nice, and, you know, my monitoring is nice, but it's mostly instruments in here, stuff that I can bang on, and lots of like things that sound like songs when you play them.
I love it.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about your approach to mixing? You know, are you entirely in the box? What does it look like for you when you start a mix?
Yes, I'm in the box. I like to reamp things out through guitar pedals, amplifiers, and things like that. It's basically a roundabout way of adding effects. But yeah, I'm mixing in the box. I predominantly use Cubase as my